The Lane Kiffin saga continues as we're on day 9,682, it feels like for me, on what Lane Kiffin is going to do here. Now, to give some backstory to this, since the last time you and I talked, Ole Miss met with Lane Kiffin on Friday and said that they were going to let him coach the Egg Bowl after publicly giving him an ultimatum. Because, of course, you backed down. Of course you did. Now it seems like Lane Kiffin is going to be coaching the Egg Bowl. I don't know how this makes it until Friday, but yet again, here we are. A lot of things have been reported. Ross Dellinger, Brandon Marcello have both come out and said that LSU is offering approximately 7 years, $98 million. So about $14 million a year for Lane Kiffin. Joe, now that this is kind of coming to the final week here, what are your thoughts?
Well, before we talk about speculation on what's actually going to ultimately happen, I think that at the end of the day, nobody has any freaking clue what the actual decision is going to be, despite a lot of signs pointing towards LSU. My first thought with this, and I kind of alluded to it a second ago, what is going to happen in the Egg Bowl? Because this year is a year where Mississippi State looks a lot more competitive than they've been in recent seasons. They have the ability to put up a fight. They have multiple games this year where they have gone toe-to-toe with top teams or middle-of-the-pack teams in the SEC when they probably didn't have any right to. Jeff Levy has this team fighting. One quote from Ross Dellinger's article on Friday really caught my attention.
It won't go until Friday?
Well, it's not good. The players know, they read it all. It sounds like the tone in the locker room is not good at the very moment.
Well, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I really wonder how they're going to show up on. They playing on Friday or is it Saturday?
It's Friday. Let's bring up this again. Everybody's coming down on Lane Kiffin right now. I understand why. Lane Kiffin's not walking away from his team because if he wanted to walk away to Florida or LSU, he could have done it already. He hadn't walked away. He walked in there in that ultimatum meeting with Ole Miss on Friday and said, fire me, suspend me. I double dog dare you. And with all due respect, Ole Miss saying that there wasn't an ultimatum, with all due respect, Ross Dellinger, Brandon Marcello, Matt Zenitz, all of these guys know more than you. Newsflash to you little small source dudes on Twitter that are Ole Miss fans that have a Trinidad flag, they know more than you. And when they came out along with Chris Lowe, who, by the way, newsflash, if Chris Lowe reports anything with any ties to Nick Saban, you better shut up and listen. So when he comes out and says that there's an ultimatum, and then Lane Kiffin walks off in that ultimatum and says, do it then. Now, I heard that Lane Kiffin walked off in that meeting on Friday and said, you're going to have to show me now that the clearinghouse is here, how we're going to be able to approve all of these collectives and all of these collective deals. Because right now it's not working. So we got grandfathered in on the deals that we made. What is the plan going forward? Ole Miss is not willing to admit that the clearinghouse problem is the biggest hurdle that Keith Carter and company, along with Walker Jones, has not been able to overcome. He called your bluff and you backed down. Joe, Ole Miss was the guy at the bar who got in a little bit of a scuffle and he poked his chest out and said, yeah, you want to fight? And then the dude stood up and he saw that he was 7 foot tall and was like, all right, I might want to back down. But that you can't give a guy an ultimatum, leak it to Chris Lowe, and then say we're going to make a decision on Friday and back down. That's number one.
Yeah.
Number two, with all due respect, you cannot give the contract that LSU and Florida can give. You cannot legally. You keep making up these lies in reference to, oh, well, it's technically an extension through 2031. You can only have 4-year deals. I mean, like that is, I'm not even going to go there anymore. So I don't understand that. The calendar is the problem here for everybody. And I thought that Nick Saban brought it up and probably hopefully gets all of this done. The calendar's got to get changed because it kills LSU, it kills Florida, it kills Ole Miss. And those kids shouldn't be hurt with it. Now, Joe, as I've been saying since not this past Thursday, but the Thursday before, if you want to know how all this started, just go to AYS. We did an hour and 30-minute long show of everything I was hearing. Joe, LSU ain't backing down. They are not backing down. Got to be real with you. Joe, it's not the only coach that's been asking questions about this. Since LSU has come out with a 7-year, $98 million deal, along with, and I heard different than Ross, I heard it was $30+ million in NIL. Joe, listen, it's going to be laughed at when I say this. There are massive Power 4 head coaches right now that have contacted LSU and asked if this is legit. I'm not guessing about that. Know it for a fact. Massive Power 4 head coaches have been calling Verge Alsbury's phone and saying, are you serious about this? Not the contract. Are you willing to spend that much for your roster? I don't know where this is going. If everybody keeps asking me for percentages, I put 40, 40, 20, 40 LSU, 40 Florida, 20 Ole Miss. I just don't know if he goes. I don't know if I see a world where he goes back unless sentimental, he just can't leave. Maybe that is a plausibility. But LSU and Florida are not backing down here. Now, when the day comes, there will be a story that comes out between me and arguably one of the biggest national media guys in the country. Wednesday, I know for a fact that when the Tuesday meeting got canceled between Florida and John Summerall, Florida didn't back down. That Wednesday, they had a meeting with John Summerall. People come out here and say sources, by the way. I don't need the sources on this one. I'll leave it there. And in due time, me and this person will do a show together and we will talk about it. But
I'm intrigued for this. When is this coming? When is this show happening?
Let's let all of this settle and we'll have the conversation about it.
Okay.
I'm not guessing. And if you don't find my credibility large, well, you're definitely going to find his very much the same because we both did it and I saw it with my own eyes. Okay. Bottom line is this. I do think Florida's looking around just in case. LSU really isn't. They're not. And it could come back to bite them in the ass. So we will see. If you ask me right now, I lean more towards Florida LSU because I think it's just so overwhelming. I don't know, though. That is just a guess. I don't know how this gets to Friday. I don't. I legitimately don't know how this gets to Friday. Maybe it does. I don't know.
I feel like if we got the whole announcement thing, that it's kind of setting up for something was determined and some sort of respect was asked to be given in terms of that announcement not coming out. So maybe this does end up being a Saturday morning announcement. And you and I are you're probably going to have to do a long reaction show to it. And then you and I end up reconvening to do our own reaction to it as well. But I got two things just off of my own trying to attempt to read any tea leaves here because there's just so much information and it's no one knows except for Lane.
Correct.
Knowing Ross and how he operates, I feel like the way that the article was pointed so aggressively in the direction of LSU, that does feel incredibly telling. I don't think Ross, knowing how he operates, that I don't think that he's going to write a story about LSU being the primary frontrunner and the most aggressive team in the mix for that push to go get Lane Kiffin. I don't think that he would do that if he doesn't believe that that's where this is trending towards. I think that's a very critical part.
I've been told that LSU is willing to go up to $16 million per year.
That's insane if that's true. Mm-hmm. To that point, you mentioning...
Hold on.
No, I'm not saying insane in a bad way. I'm saying insane in like, wow.
No, hold on. As Thursday's show went to Friday's Ross Dellinger article, I'm not guessing on that one. They are willing to go 7 years, $16 million per. Not guessing.
I believe you. I believe you.
They're not going to back down off of this. Joe, I think they would cap themselves around 16 and a half if it came down to it. If Florida goes higher than that, listen, if Lane goes somewhere else besides LSU, it's preference, not resources.
Right. Sorry, I was just double checking Kirby's his $13 million.
13 million.
Wow.
But if I'm not mistaken, Kirby's contract is a lot like Nick's, that when someone gets paid more money than him, then George has to match it. Yes.
Is Jimmy Sexton Kirby's agent?
He is.
He's a sick MFer, dude. I mean, that's just so annoying. Because if he pulls this off, he gets Lane the $16 million, then well, how convenient. Kirby also gets $16 million. The other thing that I wanted to bring up, though, you brought up the anecdote. Everybody understands. You mentioned how coaches were intrigued by what was put on the table here. All these coaches are paying.
4 head coaches, yes.
They're always paying attention to stuff like this, and so are their agents. I think, and as you mentioned here, that they're all in on Lane. They might not be going and looking in other directions as much as Florida and other programs are at the current moment. I feel like if you're bringing that up, that does set LSU up to be in a very, very good position if for whatever reason Lane chooses not to pick LSU.
Correct.
Because one of the criticisms at the beginning of this opening was people were saying LSU wouldn't have enough money because of the firing with Brian Kelly. People were saying that, and we even said it, LSU was concerning because of the governor involvement and all that stuff. He's backed off, and it's clear that financial commitment has been put towards this opening. So if all those numbers are out there and coaches are opening their eyes to it, I think that we can move past any concerns about LSU, this opening not being the best available opening for this cycle.
I think Brian Kelly is going to settle, but that's neither here nor there. Okay. I think that LSU is doing this because they know that they're going to settle. And the truth of the matter is that Landry's comments did exactly the opposite of what we all thought it would do and piss some people off. I don't know what Lane's going to do. I have no clue, but he's going to step to the podium tomorrow morning in front of Oxford or Ole Miss media, and he's going to get hammered. He's going to get absolutely hammered. It is going to be must-see TV. So I guess we see what happens there. I'm sure it's been a long weekend. Joe, his kids were in Baton Rouge on Saturday.
Lane's kids were.
Yeah, now I would assume that's because, his daughter's dating Whit Weeks.
Right.
The son ain't. The son's out there.
I hope not.
Yeah, before a game, he's wearing LSU headphones. So I don't, I don't know what all that means. Look, I'm not going to act like that I'm in the mind or know where this thing goes. I just don't think LSU will back down from a resource standpoint. Florida, on the other side of this, Joe, before we move to Norvell, there's a lot of confidence coming out of Gainesville that he's going there too. So we hadn't really talked about Florida here. There's a lot of confidence coming out of Gainesville that he's going.
Which is surprising though, because I feel like that there's been a lot less really backed reporting. I feel like every time I get an update, it's, well, okay, this is shifting towards LSU. This is shifting towards LSU. It just feels like I might be misreading this, that Florida feels like they're just in it because of the brand.
Well, here's the question. Are we all getting Sextoned?
Pause. I think that we might
be. But are we all getting Jimmy Sexton?
I think that that's plausible, that this all might be part of the Jimmy Sexton game, that we're getting jerked around.
How do you get LSU and Florida to their highest number? Say LSU leads. And then Florida counters, Ole Miss counters, and then LSU counters and says, hey, everybody's going to sit around. NACO's reported that they're at 13 million. Marcelo comes out 30 seconds later and says, sources, LSU saying now they're up to 14 million. I promise you, as I've been saying from 2 Thursdays ago, they're not going to get beat on resources on this one. I promise you, it's not going to happen. If he chooses, whatever he chooses, it's not going to be because of resources. It's going to be because he wanted to go to Florida. He sees it as a better opportunity, or he stays at Ole Miss because of what he built. Mm-hmm. That is the bottom line. And he very well may choose this, and he very well may think that Florida is the better opportunity here. I don't know. And I'm not going to act like I don't know. Here's another thing. Don't tell me that he doesn't have a decision made up in his mind. I refuse to.
Oh, I agree with that. I am sure he and Sexton have already communicated to one another what the plan is, the timeline is. The statement that comes out from the Ole Miss athletic administration to me was like the real indicator that something had to have been decided. You do not put out that statement with that tone if there has not been something that has been established. It did not seem like a we're being patient here. It felt like you'll find out what we came to.
And that's a whole nother conversation that we could spend an hour on. By the way, then fire him. You can't walk out there with brass balls and then turn into we have no marbles, 6'7". You can't do that. You can't do that. It shows that Ole Miss hasn't been here before. I mean, with all due respect to Keith Carter, I know it's not all your decision. You need your chancellor. Then tell him to take the job. Tell him you're suspending him until further notice. And saying that you know what? This is what I would have done. There's multiple reports that you've been speaking with Governor Jeff Landry of Louisiana. We're suspending you until we do an investigation. Suspending you with pay. And guess what he's going to do? He's going to leave. But the only thing I would say, Ole Miss completely messed up all of their leverage. Lane doesn't want to leave. He wants to coach the playoffs. You should have made Florida and LSU wait. By the way, the coach that you're going after, and John Summerall, probably is going to make the playoffs too.
Can I add? I got to add this. We kind of alluded to this. Chris Lowe reported on the fact that if Lane Kiffin were theoretically not to coach in the playoff, and this does come to fruition, Chris Lowe reported, we alluded to it, and then the next day Chris Lowe reported that
Joe Judge.
Well, no, not Joe Judge, that the committee would weigh heavily Ole Miss's seeding if they were to win out, where they would be placed if Lane Kiffin doesn't coach. He didn't say that they'd be taken out, but I think that with the whole what's the Florida State quarterback's name that got hurt a couple of years ago?
What's his name?
Jordan Travis. When Travis got hurt, and there was that whole line in their protocol that I went and found on their website, I do wonder how does that affect their seeding. And then secondly, if they lost the Egg Bowl and they had 2 losses, I feel like they would automatically just get ripped out. Like they would automatically get taken out of the playoff mix.
Maybe, but you can't do that and then say Utah's on the brink of getting.
Well, to be honest with you, I think if they have an Ole Miss, I think that they'd probably put Vanderbilt in.
I think you're probably right there.
Because they would have beaten a ranked Tennessee team to end the season, most likely, and it would make the better case than Utah or BYU.
I mean, look, man, I'm sorry. Ole Miss bungled this one. You should have told LSU to wait and Florida to wait and see what happens. I get you want your coach too. I get that, but you panicked. You completely panicked.